Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. Where we explore what really happens when businesses grow. I'm your host, Paul Guyan. Most founders assume that if the business is really successful, the next step is obvious: expand. But what if growth is actually making your business more fragile? Today, we're joined by entrepreneur Connor Treacy. He helped build one of the Hollywood's hottest boutique nightclubs, only to discover that success can create pressures that undermine the very thing that made the business work in the first place. So, Connor Treacy, welcome to the show. Appreciate it.
How's it going, Paul?
It's
Thanks
going
for
great.
having me.
Yeah, you bet. Connor just got his MBA, was it you said?
Yeah, I got my MBA from USC.
Oh, congratulations.
Yeah.
Wow. So during our pre-call, you said revenue and growth and a durable business are not the same thing. What does that mean? Take me back to the beginning. Why did you start with Off Sunset in the first place?
Yeah. So basically, it was kind of floated around between me and a few different partners or whatever, probably like right before COVID. And then
Hmm.
I think COVID hit and I kind of didn't really like think that much about it. Was like, okay, well, that's not going to happen. But I've been an entrepreneur like since I was a teenager. So I always have kind of like it seems like at least maybe like five or six different like pending options kind of at all times of different things. So I never really know what's gonna be like kind of the next thing. And but that was one of the things kind of going on at that time. And yeah, they ended up getting the lease and renovated and everything. I was kind of like I was like 28 when we opened it, so I was definitely like the youngest person involved. So I was like a minority partner in it, but I got brought in. We launched it like summer of 2021, and it kind of just took off. I mean, it we kind of did like a word of mouth type promo for like the first couple months, but was it had momentum kind of like from the start. It wasn't really like it took a year or two to get big.
And why did was that soft launch so successful?
I don't know if it's just like a LA thing or Hollywood or whatever, but I think, at least from what it seems like is like in that market, people kind of like that like word of mouth, like, oh, it's hard to get in or you know what I mean? And so when there's like that sense of like it's not easy to get in or this or that, then I think it adds like an extra level of mystique maybe. But I also think it is a great way to kind of launch something too, because it doesn't put that much pressure on like one specific opening night, like we kind of played it off like we were just showing like friends and family the space for a few weeks or however long, and we were having people come every Thursday and Saturday or whatever the original nights were. But we were fully open. It's just, but then once a month or two had gone by, and then people were like hitting us up asking to come, then we kind of did like a opening night, but it was open. So that's kind of like how that was launched and how that kind of went down.
Yeah, I think it's human nature to, well, that's the cool, if you got the cool kid on the block. You were telling me earlier that you have a huge network of musicians and entrepreneurs and producers and actors and things like that. Is that why the other partners brought you in? Was it your influence that was appealing to them, or was it just because you're a cool guy?
I don't I'm not that cool. I'm kind of like a quiet guy, but I I've been doing the events like I said kind of like since I was 19, and so I'm 33 now, so think that like I've been doing it like 14, 15 years basically, and so I have like a built-in base kind of like a following. So if I do like an event or a nightclub or whatever, like I would consider myself probably like the base person where I can bring like a lot of people. And so I think each partner I had like definitely had their own role. It was like me and four other people, and one of them was kind of more like the money person, and one of them like I had previously worked at One Oak before, which was this big nightclub, and so they kind of had like the Holder, like celebrity crowd kind of. And then another one of my partners I worked at Interscope with, like a record label. And so me and him kind of had like overlapping like music industry deep contacts, like agents and label people and all that type of stuff. And so it kind of, when you add all that together and it was like only, you know, like 150 capacity room, then I think that's kind of like what made it special. I think all of us kind of adding to it, you know?
Yeah, and that small venue makes it, oh shoot, I'm not going to be able to get in if I don't go. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna get there before anyone else does, kind of thing. And plus, you got the cool kid on the block thing going on to attract people. So I think that would work anywhere. Uh,
Right.
just because you had those the visibility of those people, they're cool. Everyone wants to be around them. Oh, you know Geddy Lee from Rush. Wow, that's really cool.
Yeah. Right.
He hangs out at your club. Wow, that's really cool. I want to go. Uh, by the way, we're big Rush fans.
Um,
Uh, yeah, let's go. So, what was the vision that your group had? It sounded like it just kind of gelled and came together. Said, "Oh, here's a building. Let's put something nice in it or something cool in it." What was it?
So it was like a lot of it was just timing and who was involved and a lot like I can give kind of like maybe some reasons in my head of like why it worked. You know, for one, it was the first venue that opened after COVID, and it was the first
Yeah.
one that was new in LA kind of for like a month or for like a year and a half. So we had like runway and we were the coolest, like newest thing. The rent was pretty cheap from what I understand. You know, and I think we got like a better deal maybe because we were negotiating it during COVID. So
Mhm.
we had that going on. And it was a legendary spot before. From what I understand, before I kind of was going out, it was like one of the spots to be for a certain period of time. And then I think some nightlife group basically like had the lease on it. And they kind of, what I heard is they were just kind of paying the lease on it and just leaving it empty because they owned a bigger club across the street and they just left it dormant so it wouldn't be competition for it. And so I think, you know, during COVID, maybe even, or right before that, they kind of were like maybe liquidating things on their end or changing things around. And so it came up for a lease. And so we kind of got a really sick spot that was basically like buried for a decade or more. And then we got it cheaper probably than usual because it was during COVID. And then we were the first thing to open right out of COVID. And then everyone involved, like we all weren't like traditional promoters. Like we kind of all had like different worlds and were able to bring like interesting people into the room that maybe wouldn't necessarily always come to like a typical nightclub. So when you add all of that together, I think that's maybe what made it special, but it's hard to predict that stuff in business. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of times, you know, sometimes things work and sometimes they don't.
Is like the perfect storm.
Yeah. That was,
Yeah.
and that's what I think the perfect storm was with that. But
Yeah. And so how soon or when did you know it was working? What was that like?
like immediately. And I was like, I was worried originally because I was working at Universal Music Group up until maybe like fall of 2019 and I had actually left because I wanted to start my own management company. And so I thought I was done with nightlife. I wasn't even trying to do all that. And so I left and then maybe like 3 or 4 months after that COVID hit and then that opportunity came out and I was kind of worried originally. I was like, I don't know if I want to do like a nightclub because then people are gonna think I'm like a club guy or a promoter, and I was trying to like shake that to be like a music manager. So I remember at the time it was a little weird, like the first week or two, like inviting people because I felt like people were like, oh, like he's back in nightlife again, or you know what I mean. So, but it very quickly just gelled and then it became like the cool place to be. So then it was like fine, but it was like a little weird getting the gears going again in the beginning. For me at least, it fucking
Yeah, but you really wanted to start your management company and you still do, and that's
yeah,
what you're doing now.
yeah,
Um, And so that fear of being misinterpreted in your brand, it was really eroding your brand a bit. But
Yeah.
it turned out that it didn't do that. And people were going, well, people who are that you're going to manage, they probably wanted to come and see what's going on too, because they
Yeah.
want to rub elbows with the people that you are rubbing elbows with.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, no, exactly. It turned into that, but I was worried originally that maybe I was going backwards or this or that, but also a lot of things that have happened in my career, like I never really knew it was going to play out that way, so you kind of just have to go with the tide. If the nightclub world is hot, then go there, or if the music world, you know what I mean? So that's kind of my mentality on it.
well, it's kind of a runway too. It can be, build some momentum there and you take that momentum and you put it into something else,
Yeah.
which I think is what you've done. So what were your competitors missing that you guys had a lock on?
The formula changed. So a lot of before that, a lot of people were doing like the big clubs. They were doing like 500, 1,000 capacity clubs and like
Mhm.
booking huge acts. And I think it changed to more of a model where people wanted like that exclusive, like intimate vibe where it was like a very selective, like handpicked crowd, and that's kind of where the model switched to. And so we were kind of like the first ones during that like era or like whatever to do a concept like that.
Yeah. And you had live acts too, didn't you?
We did sometimes like, for like the Grammys or different things like that, like people would get up and perform or do like a private event, but we weren't a typical like nightclub where like every Thursday, Saturday we had like a big rapper performing or something. It was typically just like a DJ. And then maybe
Uh,
sometimes if someone big was there, they'd like get on the mic and do a song, or if it was like their release party or a Grammy party or something, they would do something, but it wasn't like every week type vibe.
yeah. So you kind of had a variety of things going on, which was different than them too.
Yeah.
Were they watching you? Were they trying to do what you were doing?
Yeah, there were a few spots after that opened and we're doing like the small intimate like lounge thing. Everyone ended up doing it. But like I said, we had like a clean probably like year and a half runway before the first group did a concept similar.
Yeah. So you've got this hit, this going on. That's your language. You said hit.
Yeah.
You had a hit. You had a hit, and so you're going on, and it went on for what, over a year or two, a year and a half.
I was involved for about 3 years. So,
Okay.
we had even like a couple big names come like a few months before I left. So it was still like going like relatively strong. But I would say the
Yeah.
first 2 years were probably the hottest.
Yeah. What? There's some downsides to this growth. I know because you told me about it. What were some of the things that were beyond the worry of your you were worrying about your brand? But what personally were you worried about, or what was breaking for you while you were on that runway?
I just think at that point in my life, I still wasn't, it was just like weird because I wasn't trying to be a nightlife person, but it was like, of
Yeah.
course, like go figure, like when I want to be the music manager, then that's when I get given the hot nightclub. You know what I mean? Because originally my goal was to like own a nightclub. Like I originally, when I was like 19, was doing my own events. I would like book an artist, rent out a venue, sell tickets on Facebook event pages, and then I became like a big promoter in Hollywood after that. And so I thought like the natural trajectory was to then become a nightclub owner. But when I was like 24, I got hired at Universal Music Group as an A&R and a manager, and then it kind of shifted into me like discovering acts, signing them, developing them, sometimes managing them. I just thought then that I was going to be a music manager, and then I kind of backpedaled and became a nightclub owner. So, yeah, and then when the nightclub was hot, I kind of then still was like, okay, like I don't necessarily know if I want to like build this out and open like 50 off sunsets. Maybe let's not try to water it down and just keep this room as good as possible. So I have like leverage to then build out my management company. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. I do.
Yeah, that I was never trying to expand and open a bunch, where maybe in hindsight, maybe I should have just been like, hey, this is the hit. Like maybe let's just try to open a bunch of these things while we can. I don't know.
Yeah, but something about it you didn't like. So you mentioned that you had to be there all the time. Was that burning you out at all? Or did you just enjoy it, or is that it
Yeah.
changed your lifestyle a bit, I would
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, yeah. So with the nightclubs, especially those, intimate like speakeasies, you need to be there all the time, most of the time that it's open, to make sure that the crowd stays up to the par that everyone expects or whatever. Because otherwise, like, it can fall off. And so you need to be there a lot, which is tough. So that basically means we originally were open Thursdays and Saturdays, and then I think we switched it to where Friday and Saturday were the marquee nights, and then Thursday was more of like a EDM, like dance house kind of night. And so I was there basically every Friday, Saturday for a number of years. And so it's tough, like you don't really have a weekend for yourself. Like you can kind of do stuff, I guess, during the day, but you have to be there kind of at night. So whereas with music management, you're working a lot more during the day, but you can kind of do it from wherever off your cell phone or computer, so I feel like it's a chiller way of life.
Yeah. Yeah, and so you got a taste of that. Yeah, when I'm a gigging musician, so when I in the summer, I'm in tour mode right now, and so when I can get a weekend off, I take it. I take
Yeah.
take that weekend off because no matter what I'm doing, if I'm doing a podcast or working with a client, I know that come 4 o'clock, I need to shift shift what's going on in my life to that. So everything leads up to that and a weekend warrior, I guess you'd call it, but we play more than weekends. But
Yeah.
still, your life kind of revolves around that, and that can get tedious. I'm glad I don't do it full time, like I when I was a kid, when I was 16, that's what I wanted to do full time, and I got into IT and management and marketing, and I said, well, this is for me, but I'm still gigging, which is it's in my blood. But so yeah, expanding. So you were talking about expanding. What happened when with the other owners, they wanted to make this thing bigger? What
They
happened
yeah,
then?
they at least some of them definitely wanted to expand it. I think they were looking maybe at a place in New York, and then yeah, like I said, they ended up opening like a restaurant maybe 5 or 10 minutes down the road. And so I wasn't like a part of that, but yeah, they ended up opening a restaurant maybe like 6 months or so, or like around that month, like after Off Sunset opened.
Oh, really? And why were you interested in that?
It just I wasn't gonna get paid as much as doing Off Sunset, and so I don't know. I just was like, I don't know, I don't think it's the right fit. I don't know. I sometimes go off gut, but then also I think there was maybe just too many people involved, and so it just financially just didn't really make sense. So I just decided not to do it.
Was that a hard decision to make, or was that an easy one?
Maybe it was like a little weird at first, I guess, because everyone else was doing it except for me. But I um I felt like it was fine. I didn't have a issue with it. It was just more like, if it's gonna like take up more of my time, then I'm not gonna get paid as much. Like maybe you guys should go do it.
Yeah. And how do they respond to that? You not being involved.
I I think it was all good. I think it was fine. I still would support and bring people when I could and stuff. Like it was all friends and whatever. But just because you're partners on one thing, doesn't mean you need to be partners on everything. I think other people they all had other businesses and stuff too, like doing other things. So I don't think it was like a huge like dispute or something like that.
Yeah. But this was your only gig at that time, right? or were you doing other
Yeah,
stuff?
because I was in school during that time. So and I had like a few maybe like consulting clients and stuff like that, but I would say it was like my main like breadwinner probably financially, yeah.
Yeah, so you needed to protect that, and plus you had school. So
Yeah,
it's
it was like, I was doing my MBA and stuff, and so it was just kind of I didn't want to like put too much on my plate.
right. So what was the so you've got this hit going. It went for about 3 years. What was going on with what was going on in your head as the years went by? What were you thinking? I mean,
Well,
you were still in school, right?
yeah, I was still in school, but when I was doing One Oak when I was younger, I was there for most of it. I think I maybe missed like the first like 6 months of it opening, but aside from that, I was basically there until it closed. So I witnessed it being the hottest thing ever and it being packed super early in the night to then towards the end, like we weren't booking nearly as much stuff and it was some nights were like emptier or it was taking longer for it to pack out where you know what I mean? So I kind of watched the cycle lifetime of like a nightclub. So I kind of knew what to expect with Off Sunset. I knew, those things don't usually last more than like 2 or 3 years. So I kind of mentally was it, but I didn't want to open like a bunch of nightclubs. That wasn't what I was trying to do. I was more just like grateful and happy that like I guess I had a hit while I was in school and like doing my other stuff. So it was more I felt like for me just like something that like held me over and kind of kept me like quasi relevant in the scene.
Yeah. So you ended up walking away from this. Did you make the decision to walk away, or did it close down, or did that happen all at the same time?
It just didn't really make sense anymore. And they kept it open after I left for a while. I think they were still doing like private events and stuff like that. So they were still operating it. I think just for me, like, I felt like it had maybe ran its course. And then I was like, maybe this is like a good time for me to like focus on what I wanted to do, which was like managing talent and stuff like that. And then I was still like in school and the MBA part was pretty tough. Like I was doing a lot of like calculus and statistics and like computer programming stuff. And so felt like maybe it was a good time to kind of leave it.
What were your partners thinking about that? Did they have any problem with it, or what were those conversations like?
I think it was fine. Like I think at that point it was kind of on autopilot and it was rolling. So it's not like they like needed me. They could hire promoters and whatever. So it wasn't like a dramatic exit or bad blood or anything like that.
But they kept it going, and you just
Some of
bowed
some
out.
of them did. I think like maybe one or two of them maybe stepped away like around the same time. Just because it kind of was just it I guess it could be like any other business maybe, right? Where it's just like the explosive growth phase is done and then it's kind of on autopilot and then no one's really like expanding it any further. And so then it's like, okay, like it's a moving business but the prime is priority pass and we're not going to open more. So maybe some of us stay and this is what we want to do and some leave to go on to the next step in their life or something.
It's not open anymore, is it?
I don't believe so, but very recently because when I drove by like maybe a couple weeks ago or like a month ago, I saw the paint was different on the outside, but up until like a few months ago, I think I was hearing about people going to like private events there and stuff every now and then.
Yeah. Looking back, do you think there were any warning signs that you might have missed?
No, I totally knew what was gonna happen. I already had saw what happened with One Oak, and I don't know if it's like really, it LA is just so fickle. It's hard to. By the way, the music industry is the similar too. Like just because you're like a hot artist one year and you have a good album, like
Oh
depends what
yeah.
the next album's gonna be. So it's just because the club's hot, like you got to kind of keep figuring out ways, I guess, to like make it hot, or you have to open up a second thing and make that, you know what I mean? So that's just the business. So I wasn't like thrown off or shocked. I was actually, if anything, maybe more prepared than I should have been. Like I was aware like a month, like a year and a half before or something that it was probably,
Do you think you waited too long to exit?
nah, nah, I tried to stay. Like I was in school, so it was like a good way to like make money and stuff like that while I was like paying for stuff. So I feel like it was like the perfect amount of time. I didn't like stay too long to where the brand completely like changed or something. I feel like 3 years was like a pretty good bid.
I mean, what did it feel like when you got free of it?
It's tough, like it's tough when you're known as the person for this, right? Like that's your title or that's how people associate your identity. But I'd already gone through that. Like I went through that when I left Universal before COVID. I essentially, I've said this before, but I feel like 2019 was probably like one of my like hottest years or whatever. And then I left. I kind of quit everything to start my own company, and then COVID hit. And then Off Sunset kind of happened like a year after that. So I went from like being what I felt like was like super hot to then basically like ice cold to then getting like this bigger hit than I had ever had before, so things change. So I wasn't worried about losing like what people identified me with or as or something.
So you didn't, you felt relieved, right? When you left, what did you do next?
Um,
Did you have to rebuild a little bit, or people,
it
people still
wasn't
knew
it
you was that
wasn't
bad guy?
nearly it wasn't nearly as bad as it wasn't nearly as bad as when I left Universal, because I'd already gone through. I think my biggest
Yeah.
before was kind of like, what's it gonna be like going through a recession, or because I was maybe like in 10th grade or something when '08 happened, so I didn't really experience that as an adult. So for me, I don't know if they like legally declared COVID as a recession. It felt like a recession to me.
Felt
So
like one to me.
yeah. Uh, but I would say that was kind of my first time going through a recession. So I went through it. I went through losing my like big corporate title and whatever, whatever. And so at that point, I wasn't afraid to like walk away from something and kind of redo my whole identity. So it wasn't nearly as bad. And I also feel like maybe people have seen me maybe come back or rise from the ashes or something like that. So I think maybe they're a little bit more forgiving, where they're like, nah, Connor will probably come back with something. So
Yeah, that's good. It's good to be known for that. What,
I hope, or maybe they thought I was washed or done. I don't
or,
really.
or maybe you're just fickle and you go from one thing to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. But I
Yeah.
don't think you are. One thing that Brian Tracy, just made me think of that. Brian Tracy said, it's easy to get into a thing, but it's a lot harder to get out of it. And so it makes me think about that, is like when business owners get to a point in their growth and they know things aren't going the way that they had envisioned that they wanted them to go, you can exit the business. What are your thoughts on that Brian Tracy expression? Does that resonate with you?
Just that, like, it's totally possible to leave something if it isn't working.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I think about me when I left Universal, if that was necessary, or if I maybe could have like stayed longer and built out my other stuff. I don't, you know what I mean? Like maybe it was premature. Sometimes I think that, but the Off Sunset thing definitely was the right time. But yeah, no, it's true. I think it's totally okay to pivot or leave a business venture if you feel like it's stale or if it's not working or whatever. But you also can kind of like consider the options and maybe you try to line stuff up on the side so you kind of have runway instead of it being like a cold hard split and then you're kind of stuck. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
there's different
And I
ways.
think I think in some ways, Brian was talking about, especially with partners, g- whether it be in a relationship, a personal relationship or a business relationship, it's easy to get into that, but it's harder to get out. And so you need to be very discerning about what you get yourself into, especially as you grow as an entrepreneur. You learn along the way. So, what were some of the things that you learned from this, from the exit from Universal, and as well as this off sunset? And how does that affect you and what you do today?
Um, I think with Universal, like it's just so hard to say because then it begs the question if I did stay, maybe I would have been let go anyways when COVID hit because then all the touring was you know what I mean? And there was a bunch of layoffs. So maybe I
Yeah.
was able to exit while I was on top. Uh,
Hmm.
and then with Off Sunset, I think it was like kind of the same thing. So it's kind of hard to, I guess, like go back like that and think if there was a different way to do it. But yeah, I think, what was the full question?
It's kind of like we were talking about earlier. It's like like an album that's hot and then it's not, and then you've got to do another one
Yeah.
if you're an artist. I was wondering what you learned from those experiences, and how does that impact how you approach business today? That was
Yeah.
the full question.
Yeah. I always try to line up other things. I always like, even if when I had Off Sunset, I was still trying to like manage a few artists or put together a few like CPG type deals or do different things. And at Universal, when I was there, I still kind of like had other consulting deals with things, or I was working at some of the clubs. So I try to always have other things going on because I don't know, in some ways, I feel like an artist as an entrepreneur, right? Where you're kind of like putting together this like project or like body of work and you just kind of release it into the world and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. So you kind of, I try to have like a bunch of different things going on at the same time because then it takes like the pressure off of it in a sense. I think like if I'm just doing like one thing, then I'm like overthinking it and whatever, and at least in my experience, a lot of the stuff that has worked, it kind of just happened randomly. Like I wasn't even trying to work at Universal and they reached out to me and hired me. I wasn't even trying to do Off Sunset and they hit me, you know what I mean? So, but that being said, I'm always working. I'm always trying to figure out ways to get things going. So it's not like I'm just sitting at home waiting, you know what I mean? It's just, I feel like you kind of have to put yourself in position and then be an option for people, I guess, when there's like projects being considered and stuff like that.
Yeah, it really is like you are in the entertainment industry, and I think that's how you've got to be. Many business owners really aren't going to be that way, but they're going to be looking at entrepreneurs are always looking for opportunities, but a lot of times they stay in their lane as far as if they're in a particular niche or a particular type of service they're offering. Maybe they'll buy a building or they'll license their product or something like that. But I love how you got all these plates spinning and you got things on the burners. I can relate to that because I'm a bit like that myself.
Yeah.
Having the band and a full-time career and business podcasts, kids. My middle son just got married on Sunday.
Wow. Oh yeah,
And,
you were
and
telling me about that, right?
yeah, he said, "Hey, Dad, got to tell you something. Bella and I are really in love and we want to get married." I said, "Oh, that's great. Wow. Hey, congratulations. Do you guys have a date?" Sunday.
What?
What? This Sunday. He told me last Sunday that he's getting married this Sunday, this past
That's
Sunday.
crazy.
And I said, "Really? Where's it going to be?" "I don't know yet." "Well, who's going to marry you?" That's what I was going to ask you, Dad. Do you know anybody who can marry us?
What?
Yeah, it was that quick.
Let's go.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So anyways, that's an entrepreneurial thing there.
Yeah.
But it was kind of unplanned, I think. Well, no, they've been planning it. They just haven't been telling us anything, what's going on. So who knows
Right.
what's really going on. I'd loved our conversation. It's really a pleasure to meet you. What's, as we close out, what's one thing every founder should think about before deciding to expand?
It's like what the goal is and what they're trying to do is going to add value to what's currently working or not. I think like from what I've experienced before is like not just with Off Sunset, but with other like events or whatever. Just because like one thing hit doesn't mean like you're like Midas and anything you touch turns to gold. And you know what I mean? Like the one thing worked for a reason. So if you try to do something completely different, that's a completely different situation, right? So maybe consider like why this is working, and then if you are gonna like add something else, like does that help or hurt the current business that's kind of paying for everything?
Yeah. Yeah. So how can our listeners connect with you and learn more about what you're building and what you offer? I'm sure there's at least one musician in the audience.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a website, connortracy.com, and then Instagram, X, Talk, all that just at the Connor Treacy, and then LinkedIn, it's just Connor Treacy.
Yeah. And that's spelled Treacy,
Yep.
correct?
A little
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah. It's cool. So remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan and Connor Treacy. Thank you so much for sharing your hits with us.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. Good talking.
You bet.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyan, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.